Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. My wife filed for divorce 2 days after I found a second phone in her work bag, and she did it with a smile. Then she tried to ruin my job, drain what I built, and leave me looking like the problem while she walked away untouched. Here's how it happened. I'm Malik Carter, Black, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, the kind of man who keeps receipts, keeps promises, and keeps his head down. I used to believe that was enough to keep a marriage safe. 7 years with Nia Walker Carter taught me the opposite. I thought love was proof. I thought loyalty was automatic when you share a bed, a mortgage, and quiet Sunday mornings. I thought if you worked hard and stayed steady, people would meet you there. Nia worked in operations at a medical supply company on the north side of Columbus. It was the kind of job that came home with her, emails at dinner, calls in the car, emergencies that always happened after 9. She used to say her work bag was her whole life, joking like it was cute. I would nod, take her coat, warm her plate, and try not to notice how she stopped meeting my eyes when she came in late. The shift didn't arrive as one big moment. It came as small denials stacked on top of each other. Nia stopped asking about my day, stopped touching my arm when she walked by, started taking her phone into the bathroom like it needed privacy, started sleeping, turned away, back to me like I was hot she didn't want. When I asked if we were okay, she said I was dramatic and insecure, and then she would kiss my forehead like I was a child and tell me to be grateful she was working so hard. I try to be patient because that's what men like me do. I told myself every marriage has seasons. I told myself she was tired. I told myself the distance was temporary. I filled the space with effort. Date nights in the short north, little weekend drives to Cleveland, flowers on random Tuesdays. She accepted everything like it was her due, never rude, never thankful, just entitled. Like I owed her my stability, and she owed me nothing back. The first time I felt real fear was at my brother Darius's house in Detroit last Thanksgiving. Darius is older, louder, always had a way of making people feel small with jokes that land a little too sharp. His wife, Tasha Bennett, always played sweet, big smile, perfect hair, warm hug. She pulled me aside in the kitchen while Nia was upstairs helping with something and told me, "You look tired, Malik. Don't let life run you." The way she said it felt like she knew something I didn't. I laughed it off because that's what you do when the truth is still too ugly to consider. After that, my own home started feeling staged. Nia kept things tidy but cold. She stopped leaving little signs of herself. No slippers by the couch, no favorite mug in the sink. She was physically present but emotionally gone, like a tenant who paid rent and expected silence. And every time I tried to talk, she had a script ready. I was controlling, I was watching her, I was trying to hold her back. She said those words like she practiced them. I work in IT compliance for a logistics firm downtown. My job is simple: protect systems, track access, document incidents. I live by rules because rules keep chaos away. When Nia started asking casual questions about my work, who approves vendor access, what kind of logs we keep, how audits work, I answered at first, thinking she was just making conversation. Then I noticed she never asked about my day unless it could turn into information. It made my stomach tighten, but I still refused to believe she could be using me. The night everything cracked open was a Tuesday in early spring, rain tapping the window like it had something to say. Nia came home after 10, heels in her hand, hair too neat for someone who claimed she'd been running around. She tossed her work bag by the kitchen chair, kissed the air near my cheek, and went straight to the shower. She didn't ask what I ate, didn't ask if I was okay, just moved like she had a schedule and I was not on it. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for her charger because she always stole mine and then acted like I was petty for mentioning it. I unzipped the inner pocket of her work bag, and my fingers hit something hard, smooth, wrapped in a scarf like it needed to be hidden. I pulled it out and stared. A second phone, newer than mine. No case, no cracks, no clutter. It looked untouched like a tool. My heart started beating in that loud, stupid way that makes you feel embarrassed for having a body. I told myself it could be a work phone, but Nia had never mentioned a work phone, and she mentioned everything she could use to make herself look important. I pressed the side button, and the screen lit up. No lock, no wallpaper, no photos, just messages. The first thread I opened was saved under a name that made my throat close. T. The texts weren't flirty at first. They were strategic, short, precise, like two people planning a job. He asked again, "Keep him calm. Don't react. Push the paperwork next week." Then I saw the message that made the room tilt. "He's finally quiet. Good. Now file it. He won't fight you. He's too proud to beg." The sender wasn't a coworker. The sender was Tasha, my brother's wife. The same woman who called me family. The same woman who sat at my table, ate my food, laughed at my jokes. My mouth went dry. I scrolled up and saw my own name used like a target. Malik won't suspect. He is predictable. He thinks love is enough. I stood there in my kitchen listening to the shower run, realizing that everything I thought was private had been discussed by people who knew my patterns. And the part that hurt worse than the cheating I hadn't even confirmed yet was the tone. There was no guilt, no hesitation, just certainty, like hurting me was a chore they were finishing. I didn't confront her. Not that night. The message said I was quiet, and it felt like a dare. I put the phone back exactly where it was, wrapped it the same way, zipped the pocket the same way. Then I sat at the table and stared at the grain in the wood until the water shut off, and she walked out in her robe like a woman with nothing to hide. She glanced at me, expression flat, and asked, "Why are you sitting in the dark?" I told her I was tired. She nodded like she expected that answer, grabbed her own phone from the counter, and went to bed without saying goodnight. I lay there next to her, staring at the ceiling, feeling my chest ache like something heavy was resting on it. My mind kept replaying the words, "He won't fight you. Too proud to beg." The next morning, I went to work and smiled at people like my life wasn't splitting open. I took my lunch break in my car and wrote down everything I remembered from that second phone. Not because I was planning revenge, but because my brain needed proof that I wasn't imagining it. I drove to a small credit union on the east side and opened a separate account in my name only. I didn't move everything. I moved enough to protect myself if the floor fell out. That week, Nia acted lighter than she had in months. She hummed while cooking. She laughed at a show we used to watch. She touched my shoulder once like she was reminding herself she still could. It made me feel sick, not because I wanted her back, but because I realized she was performing normal so I wouldn't look too closely. It was like being hugged by someone holding a knife behind their back. On Friday, she said she had to go to Indianapolis for a training. She packed the work bag like it was nothing, kissed my cheek, and told me not to wait up. The second she left, I felt my entire body drop into the kind of quiet that only comes when you know you're alone with a truth you didn't ask for. I didn't want to become the kind of man who spies. I hated the idea of it, but the phone existed. The messages existed. And my name existed inside their plans like a problem to be managed. So I did what I do best. I documented. I photographed the inside pocket before I touched anything. I took the second phone out and sat with it like it was evidence at a trial. There were more threads. One was saved under G. That one made my hands shake. The messages were flirtation wrapped in logistics. The room is booked. I like you in that silver dress. Stop thinking about him. He's just the foundation. I'm the future. Then, colder, make sure you delete the calendar. Use the second line only. Do not mention my name near your husband. I went to the Photos tab. Empty. I went to the email app. Empty. Everything was stripped down to messaging and calls. A burner that wasn't really a burner because it was too clean, too intentional, too permanent. Like it belonged to a life she had been building quietly while I stayed loyal inside the one we promised each other. I checked the call log. Repeated numbers. Late nights. Early mornings. Weekends when she told me she was helping her mom. My chest tightened when I saw one of the calls matched a weekend in Nashville, the trip I thought was our reset. I realized she hadn't been resetting with me. She had been managing me while she kept someone else fed. I did not scream. I did not throw anything. I sat on my couch and let the grief settle like dust. Then I screenshotted everything. I backed it up to a secure folder. I emailed copies to myself from a new address. I printed a few pages at work and put them in a sealed envelope in my desk drawer. It felt clinical, but it was the only way to stop myself from collapsing. When Nia came back Sunday night, she smelled like a hotel lobby, clean, expensive, detached. She talked about training modules and team building with a practice tone that made me feel like I was listening to a stranger read from script. She never mentioned Indianapolis in any real way. No funny story, no complaints, no detail, just enough words to cover the lie. That night, she slept like someone with nothing weighing on her. I lay awake and thought about how cruel it is to share a bed with someone who is actively planning your heartbreak. I thought about my mother telling me, when I was young, that betrayal is rarely loud at first. It's quiet. It's organized. It's people smiling at you while they move your life around behind your back. The next betrayal came from my own brother. Darius called me randomly on Tuesday and said, "You good, little bro? You sound distant lately." His voice was too casual, like he was checking the temperature of a room he planned to set on fire. I told him I was fine. He laughed and said, "That's my guy. Keep your head up. Women get restless." Then he changed the subject. After that call, I understood Darius knew. Maybe he didn't know everything, but he knew enough to speak to me like I was already losing. And it wasn't just Nia and Tasha playing games. It was my own blood standing near them, letting it happen, maybe even enjoying it. I started noticing other things. Nia's mother, Denise Walker, suddenly began calling more, not to ask how I was, but to remind me of my responsibilities. "A man should provide stability," she'd say, like I was a job description. When I tried to be honest about feeling distance, Denise shut it down. "Don't start with your feelings, Malik. Nia is a hardworking woman. Don't make her life harder." It wasn't supported. It was pressure. I stopped trying to plead for love and started preparing for survival. I updated my passwords. I froze my credit. I quietly moved my personal documents, birth certificate, passport, social security card, into a safe deposit box. I did not announce any of it because I wasn't seeking drama. I was seeking safety. I had learned that the people closest to me could smile while they planned my undoing. Nia seemed to sense the shift. She started picking fights for no reason. If I washed dishes the wrong way, she said I did it to annoy her. If I asked where she was going, she said I was controlling. If I stayed silent, she accused me of punishing her. She kept pushing until any reaction would make me look like the unstable one. I recognized the setup, and it made my stomach turn. One evening, she cornered me in the hallway and said, "You've been acting weird. Are you hiding something?" The audacity almost made me laugh. I told her I'd been stressed at work. She smirked like she knew that was weak, then said, "Maybe you should talk to someone. Professional help. You've been off." It wasn't a concern. It was framing. 2 days later, I got a calendar invite forwarded from Nia's email by accident. It was meant for someone else, and it wasn't even subtle. Meeting asset division strategy. My hands went cold. The invite was deleted seconds later, followed by a text from her. "Oops, wrong email. Ignore." Like my life was a typo. That night, I opened the second phone one more time, not because I wanted more pain, but because I needed to know how deep it went. I found a note saved in the Notes app. It listed dates, bank names, my work schedule, and a line that made my chest burn. "Make him think it's his fault. He will retreat." Under that, "Darius can keep him busy." Under that, "Denise will pressure him." They had assigned roles in my heartbreak. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with a blanket and listened to the refrigerator hum, thinking about all the times I defended Nia to people who said she was cold. I remember telling my friends, "That's just how she is, but she loves me." I realized I had been translating cruelty into personality to protect my own pride. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday afternoon while I was in a video meeting. The doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, a process server stood there like a human period at the end of my sentence. Nia was home, sitting on the couch with her laptop open like she was working. She didn't move. She didn't flinch. She didn't even pretend to be shocked. She just watched me sign, eyes calm, as if this was a delivery she had ordered. After the server left, I held the envelope and stared at her. She said, "Don't make this harder than it has to be. No apology. No explanation. No sadness. Just irritation, like I was an obstacle." When I asked her why, she shrugged and said, "People grow apart. You should be mature enough to accept it." That night, She slept in the bedroom like a queen who had won a war. I slept on the couch because I could not stand the thought of lying beside her and pretending. My phone buzzed around midnight with a message from Darius. Heard you got served. Don't embarrass yourself, bro. Just sign and move on. I stared at it, the betrayal landing like a punch. The next day, Nia began acting even bolder. She started taking calls in front of me without leaving the room, lowering her voice just enough to be insulting. She walked around the house like it already belonged to her alone. She told me to start looking for somewhere else to stay, as if I was the guest. When I reminded her my name was on the mortgage, she smiled and said, "We'll see." She tried to corner me, financially first. She demanded I keep paying all bills until everything is finalized, while she moved money around quietly. She started ordering furniture online, packages arriving like she was nesting for a new life. When I asked where the money was coming from, she said, "Don't worry about it. You're not my father." The disrespect wasn't accidental. That was the point. Then she went after my sanity. She told mutual friends I was depressed and acting paranoid. She told her mother I was unstable. She even called my aunt in Cleveland and said she was worried about me. My aunt called me, voice trembling, asking if I was okay. I had to sit there and reassure family members that I wasn't losing my mind while my wife calmly built a story where I was the problem. The loneliness was the worst part. When you get betrayed, you expect pain. What you don't expect is how isolated it feels when the people who should check on you are already leaning toward the liar. I would go to work, smile, come home, and feel like my own house was a courtroom where I was on trial every time I opened my mouth. I hired a lawyer quietly, a woman in Dublin, Ohio named Kendra Sloan, the kind of attorney who doesn't waste words. I handed her copies of everything and told her I didn't want drama. I just wanted to protect what was mine and be left in peace. She looked at the messages, looked at me, and said, "You're going to stay calm, and you're going to stay documented." Kendra explained something that shifted my whole perspective. I didn't need to win loudly. I needed to survive cleanly. I needed to separate finances legally, establish timelines, and let the system do what it does when someone tries to weaponize a divorce. "Let her underestimate you," Kendra said. "That is your advantage." Nia didn't know I had representation for 2 weeks, and those were the ugliest weeks of my life. She would come home and criticize everything. She mocked the way I cooked, mocked the way I folded clothes, mocked the fact that I still went to the gym. "Who are you trying to impress?" she'd ask, laughing. It wasn't teasing. It was contempt. And she showed no remorse. Not even when she saw me sitting alone, shoulders tight, fighting tears I refused to give her. One night, she brought up children like a weapon. We'd talked about trying, but she always delayed, always said later. Now she said, "Thank God we didn't have kids. You would have messed them up." She said it casually, like she was commenting on the weather. I felt something inside me crack. Not because I wanted her motherhood, but because she knew where my softest hopes lived and she chose to step on them. The affair became obvious without her ever confessing. She started dressing differently, sharper, flashier, like she was auditioning. She started leaving the house with perfume that didn't belong to our life. When she came back, she wouldn't hug me because she didn't want me close enough to smell someone else's cologne on her skin. She treated my presence like an inconvenience. Like I was furniture she couldn't move until the paperwork cleared. Through all of it, I held it quiet. Not because I was weak, because I understood that my voice would be used against me. Every emotional reaction was a clip they could play to prove I was unstable. So I became disciplined. I journaled. I walked at night. I ate even when I didn't want to. I showed up to work on time. I did not collapse where she could step over me. The turning point, the beginning of karma, didn't come from me making threats or exposing her publicly. It came from her own carelessness. Nia had been using my work schedule and certain details about compliance processes as cover while she shared internal information at her company with Grant, the man on the G thread. She believed it was harmless. She believed she was untouchable. She believed the world worked like her marriage. Whatever she wanted, she took. What she didn't understand was that companies do not run on feelings. They run on logs. And when a vendor breach happened at her company, a small one at first, then bigger, someone started looking closely at access patterns. Nia's name appeared in a chain of approvals she couldn't explain. She had been sloppy because she was distracted by her new life and the thrill of thinking she outsmarted me. On a Wednesday morning, she left for work wearing a silver dress under her coat, the kind of outfit you wear when you plan to be seen. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't look at me. 3 hours later, she texted, "I'm staying late." That was her reflex, her default lie. But at 4, her number called me. When I answered, all I heard was breathing, then a tight voice that walked me out. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I felt an odd calm, like the universe finally matched the energy she had been carrying. I asked her what happened. She snapped, "Don't act like you care." No remorse, no vulnerability, just anger that her plan hit friction. Then she hung up. That evening, she came home with her jaw clenched and her eyes bright with rage, not tears. She paced the living room and cursed the company, cursed her stupid coworkers, cursed the jealous women in management. She never once considered that she might be at fault. She never once looked at me and said she was sorry for what she'd done to our marriage. Instead, she said, "If you say one word about this, I will destroy you." Grant did not rescue her. He vanished. The G thread stopped responding. Calls went to voicemail. Messages stayed on delivered but never changed to read. Nia tried to mask it by acting like she didn't care, but I could see the panic in the way she refreshed her screen, the way she kept stepping into the hallway to make calls she didn't want me to hear. She wasn't heartbroken. She was abandoned. The next domino was Tasha. 2 weeks after Nia's termination, my brother Darius called me again, voice strained. He said, "You need to talk to Kendra or whoever you got because there's some stuff going on." He wouldn't say details. He just said Tasha was being investigated at her own job in Detroit for financial irregularities, expense reports, reimbursements, things that looked like fraud. The same woman who texted my wife about breaking me had been breaking other rules too. Karma rarely arrives as lightning. Sometimes it arrives as paperwork, interviews, and locked accounts. Tasha's sweet mask didn't matter to the audit team. Darius tried to play innocent, but his name was tied to shared accounts and suspicious transfers. Their house suddenly felt less like a fortress and more like a trap. When Darius called me asking for advice, I realized how strange life is. The man who stood by while I was being gutted now wanted me to help him stop the bleeding. I did not help them hide anything. I did not threaten them either. I simply told Darius, calmly, "Get a lawyer." He snapped. "So you're really going to do this?" As if honesty was betrayal. As if consequences were something I was choosing for him. I said, "You made choices. Now you live with them." He hung up on me, angry, still without remorse. The divorce process moved forward, and Nia's attitude changed only in strategy, not in heart. She tried to demand spousal support, even after being fired for cause. She tried to claim I controlled finances, even though my account showed consistent shared spending and her own private purchases. She tried to push for the house, arguing she deserved stability. Kendra responded with calm, clean evidence, timelines, screenshots, account histories, and documented proof of her deception. The final blow landed quietly, not in a courtroom spectacle, not in a public scandal, but in a series of decisions that stripped Nia of the advantage she thought she had. The judge did not reward cruelty. The judge did not punish her for being unfaithful, because that is not how the law works. But the judge did recognize manipulation, bad faith, and financial games. Her demands were reduced. Her requests were denied. And when she realized she wouldn't get the payout she planned on, her face hardened, not with shame, but with hatred. After the ruling, she followed me into the hallway and hissed, "You think you won?" I looked at her and felt something surprising. Nothing. No love. No rage. Just emptiness where hope used to live. I said, "I think I'm free." She laughed like it was a joke and said, "You'll always be the same man." No remorse. Not even then. I moved into a smaller apartment on purpose in a quiet part of town near Gahanna. I took only what was mine and left the rest because I wasn't trying to win furniture. I was trying to win peace. The first night in that new place, I sat on the floor with a plate of food and realized my shoulders were not up around my ears. My body finally understood it was safe to breathe. While Nia scrambled, I built privately. My little hobby, a compliance consulting side service I'd been running after hours, became my steady second income because I finally had the mental space to work. I took small contracts for local businesses in Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. I saved quietly. I paid down debt. I invested in skills. No announcements. No celebration posts. Just progress. Nia did not bounce back. Not because I sabotaged her, but because she had built her new life on people who use her. She moved around, Indianapolis, then Chicago, crashing with friends, applying for jobs, getting rejected because termination for cause follows you in ways pride cannot cover. She called Denise, who blamed everyone but Nia. She called Darius, who was busy trying to survive his own consequences. She called Tasha, who stopped answering because she was drowning too. Months later, a message came to my phone from an unknown number. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. I didn't feel victorious. I felt grateful that I had learned to stop bleeding for people who never deserved my blood. I set the phone down and made dinner in my quiet kitchen, the kind of ordinary moment that felt like a miracle. The twist wasn't that I exposed them publicly. The twist was that their cruelty depended on me collapsing, begging, and performing pain for their satisfaction, and I refused to give them that. I kept my dignity. I kept my stability. I rebuilt in silence until my life was mine again. And the last thing karma gave me was simple, the ability to sleep through the night without waking up hoping someone finally loved me the way I love them. If this hits home, subscribe, because the next story is about what happens when the person who tried to ruin you comes back asking to talk. And tell me in the comments, what's the coldest line in this story? He won't fight you, or you think you won? I'll pin the realest answer. The end.